Welcome back to Chelder. Today, we're diving into 30 incredible facts about World War II, one of the most transformative events in history. From key battles and breakthroughs to the lasting impacts on modern warfare, this video will give you a whole new perspective on the conflict that shaped the world. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get started. Fact number 1. World War II started with the invasion of Poland that on September 1st, 1939, Nazi Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, invaded Poland, triggering the beginning of World War II. Hitler's aggressive foreign policy, rooted in expansionism and the quest for Lebensraum, living space, had already been evident in his earlier moves, such as reoccupying the Rhineland and annexing Austria. The invasion was executed using blitzkrieg tactics, which combined fast-moving ground forces, air support, and overwhelming firepower to quickly overpower the Polish defenses. Within weeks, Poland was divided between Germany and the Soviet Union, which had signed a secret non-aggression pact known as the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The swift and brutal invasion prompted Britain and France to declare war on Germany, marking the beginning of a global conflict. The subsequent occupation of Poland by the Nazis also led to the creation of ghettos and the start of a long campaign of terror against the Jewish population, which would escalate into the Holocaust. Fact number 2. The war involved over 100 million people. World War II was the largest and most complex military conflict ever fought, with more than 100 million people involved across multiple continents. The war drew in nations from all over the world, from powerful military alliances such as the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan, to the Allied powers, which included the United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, China, and many others. The war was not confined to Europe. It expanded into Asia, Africa, and the Pacific, with battles ranging from the sands of North Africa to the jungles of Southeast Asia. The sheer scale of the conflict reshaped national economies, with industrial capacities shifted to support the war effort, and countless civilians were caught in the crossfire. The involvement of various countries also meant that the war was not just a military struggle, but a test of political will, with nations forming alliances and breaking them, sometimes over ideology, resources, and territorial control. The war scale also led to widespread displacement, with millions of people becoming refugees, and fundamentally altered the social and cultural fabric of many countries. Fact number 3. The Holocaust claimed the lives of 6 million Jews. The Holocaust remains one of the most horrific events in human history. Perpetrated by Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler's regime, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews took place primarily between 1941 and 1945, although anti-Semitic laws and violence began earlier. Jews were forcibly removed from their homes and sent to ghettos before being transported to concentration camps, where most perished from starvation, disease, forced labor, or execution. In extermination camps like Auschwitz, gas chambers were used to kill large numbers of people quickly. The Nazis, fueled by a racist ideology, viewed Jews and other minorities, such as Romani people and disabled individuals, as subhuman, subjecting them to inhuman treatment. The survivors of the Holocaust faced unimaginable trauma, and the atrocity led to the creation of international human rights laws after the war to prevent such acts from ever happening again. The Holocaust left a permanent scar on the Jewish community and the world, with its legacy continuing to be a poignant reminder of the dangers of unchecked hate and totalitarianism. Fact number 4. The Battle of Stalingrad was a turning point. The Battle of Stalingrad, 1942 to 1943, was one of the largest, deadliest, and most decisive battles of World War II. It occurred when Nazi Germany, aiming to secure the oil fields of the Caucasus and destroy the Soviet Union's industrial base, launched an offensive on the Russian city of Stalingrad, now Volgograd. The battle was marked by intense urban warfare, with both sides fighting for control of key buildings, streets, and even sewers. The Germans initially made significant advances, but became bogged down in brutal house-to-house fighting. The Soviet Red Army, under General Vasily Chukov, mounted a fierce defense, often engaging in counterattacks that encircled German forces. By February 1943, the Germans were forced to surrender, marking the first major defeat of the Nazi army and the beginning of a long Soviet push westward. The battle caused more than 2 million casualties and had profound consequences on the Eastern Front. It shattered the myth of Nazi invincibility and marked the start of a steady Soviet advance that would eventually bring the Red Army to Berlin in 1945. Fact number 5. The attack on Pearl Harbor brought the U.S. into the war. That on December 7, 1941, the Japanese Imperial Navy launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, a pivotal moment that led the United States to officially enter World War II. The attack, which killed over 2,400 Americans and destroyed much of the Pacific Fleet, was intended by Japan to neutralize the U.S. Navy and prevent interference with its imperial expansion in the Pacific. Japan's ambitions, particularly in China and Southeast Asia, had long been a source of tension with the United States, and the attack was a direct response to U.S. economic sanctions and trade restrictions on Japan. The day after the attack, President Franklin D. Roosevelt delivered his famous Day of Infamy speech, calling for a declaration of war. This marked the United States' shift from a position of isolationism to active participation in both the European and Pacific theaters of war. The entry of the U.S. into the conflict greatly strengthened the Allies and shifted the global balance of power, accelerating the defeat of the Axis powers. Fact number 6. The Battle of Midway was a major victory for the U.S. The Battle of Midway, fought in June 1942, was a pivotal naval battle between the United States and Japan that changed the course of the Pacific War. After Japan's early successes in the Pacific, including the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Imperial Navy sought to capture the strategically important Midway Atoll, which would give them control over the Central Pacific. However, American intelligence had cracked Japan's naval codes, allowing them to anticipate the Japanese attack. The U.S. Navy, led by Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, set a trap for the Japanese, and in a decisive air and naval battle, they destroyed 4 Japanese aircraft carriers, significantly weakening Japan's naval power. The loss of these carriers, which were the backbone of the Japanese fleet, and the experienced pilots they carried, shifted the balance of naval power in the Pacific in favor of the Allies. The victory at Midway halted Japan's expansion and set the stage for a series of Allied offensives that would eventually lead to Japan's defeat. Fact number 7. The D-Day invasion was a massive Allied operation. The D-Day invasion, known as Operation Overlord, was the largest amphibious assault in history. On June 6, 1944, more than 156,000 American, British, and Canadian soldiers landed on the Normandy beaches in northern France to begin the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi occupation. The operation was meticulously planned and required unprecedented cooperation between the Allied forces. The landings were preceded by a massive aerial and naval bombardment intended to soften German defenses, and paratroopers were dropped behind enemy lines to secure key positions. The landings were met with stiff German resistance, but the Allies eventually broke through, leading to the liberation of Paris in August 1944 and the eventual collapse of Nazi Germany. The success of D-Day was a turning point in the war, as it marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's regime and opened a second front in Western Europe, forcing Germany to fight a two-front war. Fact number 8. The United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. In August 1945, as World War II neared its end, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. The first, dropped on Hiroshima on August 6th, was a devastating force that destroyed much of the city and killed an estimated 140,000 people, either instantly or from subsequent radiation sickness. 3 days later, on August 9th, the U.S. dropped a second bomb on Nagasaki, killing over 70,000. The bombings were intended to force Japan's surrender by demonstrating the overwhelming power of the new weapon and avoiding the high casualties anticipated from a conventional invasion of Japan. Japan's Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender on August 15, 1945, officially bringing World War II to an end. The use of atomic bombs remains a highly controversial subject, with debates about the necessity and ethics of the attacks continuing to this day. The bombings also ushered in the nuclear age, significantly altering global politics and military strategy in the decades that followed. Fact number 9. The Soviet Union lost more soldiers than any other country. The Soviet Union bore the brunt of the fighting on the Eastern Front during World War II, suffering the highest military and civilian casualties of any nation. Estimates suggest that around 27 million Soviet citizens died as a result of the war, including 8.6 million military personnel. The Soviets faced some of the most brutal and destructive fighting, especially during pivotal battles such as the Battle of Stalingrad and the Siege of Leningrad. Soviet civilians were often caught between the advancing German forces and the harsh realities of war. The atrocities of the German invasion, including mass shootings, forced labor, and the destruction of entire villages, devastated Soviet society. The high human cost of the war left deep scars, but it also cemented the Soviet Union's position as one of the two superpowers in the post-war world. The Soviet Red Army's eventual capture of Berlin in May 1945 was a major factor in the defeat of Nazi Germany. Fact number 10. The war led to the formation of the United Nations. World War II brought unimaginable destruction and loss, highlighting the need for a new international body to prevent such widespread devastation in the future. In 1945, the United Nations, UN, was established as a successor to the League of Nations, which had failed to prevent the outbreak of the war. The UN was founded on the principles of collective security, international cooperation, and the promotion of peace. The organization's primary goal was to prevent future conflicts through diplomacy and cooperation among nations. Its creation was spearheaded by the victorious Allied powers, particularly the United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and China. The UN's charter, signed on June 26, 1945, established key organs like the Security Council, the General Assembly, and the International Court of Justice, with the aim of maintaining international peace and promoting human rights and economic development. The establishment of the UN marked a shift toward multilateral diplomacy, which played a significant role in shaping the post-war international order. Fact number 11. The war accelerated technological innovation. World War II acted as a catalyst for technological advancements, many of which would have a lasting impact on the post-war world. The urgent need for military superiority led to innovations in radar, jet engines, and medical treatments. The development of radar allowed for the detection of enemy aircraft and ships, a key factor in battles such as the Battle of Britain. The jet engine, developed in both Germany and Britain, revolutionized air combat, laying the foundation for modern aviation. Advances in medicine, such as the widespread use of antibiotics like penicillin, dramatically reduced deaths from infections, saving countless lives both during and after the war. Perhaps the most far-reaching technological development was the invention of the atomic bomb, a weapon of mass destruction that would dominate global military strategy in the years that followed. The war's impact on technology extended beyond the battlefield, with innovations eventually influencing civilian industries, including space exploration, computing, and electronics. Fact number 12. Women played a crucial role in the war effort. As men went off to fight in World War II, women across the globe stepped up to take on roles traditionally held by men, dramatically altering the workforce. In the United States, the iconic figure of Rosie the Riveter symbolized the millions of women who worked in factories, building weapons, aircraft, and ships. In Britain, women served in various roles, from joining the armed forces to working in munitions factories. The Soviet Union also saw women serving as soldiers, snipers, and even pilots, with the Night Witches, a group of female Soviet pilots, gaining fame for their daring nighttime bombing raids on German positions. In addition to manufacturing and military roles, women also contributed to intelligence work, code-breaking, and nursing on the front lines. The war marked a significant shift in societal norms regarding gender roles, and many women remained in the workforce after the war ended, paving the way for future advancements in women's rights. Fact number 13. The war led to the division of Germany. After Germany's defeat in 1945, the country was divided into 4 occupation zones controlled by the Allied powers: the United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and France. The division of Germany was intended to be a temporary measure, but tensions between the Soviet Union and the Western Allies quickly escalated into the Cold War, turning the division into a long-lasting geopolitical reality. Berlin, located in the Soviet zone, was also divided into 4 sectors, despite being deep within East Germany. This division led to the construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961, which physically and ideologically separated East and West Berlin, becoming one of the most iconic symbols of the Cold War. Germany would remain divided until 1990, when the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union allowed for the reunification of the country. The legacy of Germany's division had a lasting impact on European and global politics for nearly half a century. Fact number 14. The Battle of El Alamein marked a turning point in North Africa. The Battle of El Alamein, fought in Egypt in October-November 1942, was a significant turning point in the North African campaign. The Allied forces, led by British General Bernard Montgomery, successfully repelled the Axis forces, commanded by German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, from their advance toward the Suez Canal. Rommel, known as the Desert Fox for his mastery of mobile warfare in the harsh desert environment, had threatened the strategic Suez Canal, a key link to the Middle East oil fields. The victory at El Alamein halted the Axis advance and set the stage for the subsequent Allied invasion of Italian-held Tunisia. The battle also marked the first major defeat of Rommel's forces, shifting the momentum in favor of the Allies in North Africa. The success of the Allies in the region was critical, as it secured vital supply routes and helped pave the way for the eventual Allied invasion of Italy. Fact number 15. The war's devastation led to the creation of the Marshall Plan. After the devastation of World War II, Europe was left in ruins. Much of the continent's infrastructure was destroyed, economies were in tatters, and millions of people were displaced. In response, the United States introduced the Marshall Plan, named after U.S. Secretary of State George Marshall, to aid in Europe's reconstruction. The plan, officially known as the European Recovery Program, provided over $12 billion, equivalent to around $130 billion today, in economic assistance to 16 Western European countries between 1948 and 1952. The goal was to prevent the spread of communism by stabilizing economies and promoting political stability through economic growth. The Marshall Plan helped rebuild European nations, fostered transatlantic cooperation, and was instrumental in the recovery of the European economy, setting the stage for the prosperity of the post-war period. It also marked a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy, with America taking on a leading role in the reconstruction and stabilization of Europe. Fact number 16. The Nuremberg trials established precedents for international justice that in the aftermath of World War II. The Nuremberg trials were held to prosecute prominent leaders of Nazi Germany for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. The trials, held from 1945 to 1949, were the first time in history that individuals were held accountable for crimes committed during a war, setting a critical precedent for international law and human rights. Key figures such as Hermann Göring, Rudolf Hess, and Albert Speer were tried for their roles in the war and the Holocaust. The trials also revealed the extent of Nazi atrocities, providing a stark record of the systematic nature of the genocide. While controversial at the time, the Nuremberg trials helped establish the principles that would later be used in the creation of the International Criminal Court, ICC, and other international legal bodies. The trials set the standard for holding leaders accountable for their actions and laid the groundwork for the modern field of international human rights law. Fact number 17. The war's economic impact was far-reaching. World War II had a profound impact on global economies, both during and after the conflict. The war led to the largest mobilization of resources the world had ever seen, with governments spending billions of dollars on military production, weapons, and supplies. In the United States, the war effort ended the Great Depression as factories shifted to war production and millions of jobs were created. Women and minorities entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers to fill the labor shortages left by men fighting overseas. The war also led to significant technological innovations, many of which later contributed to the growth of new industries in the post-war period. For Europe, the cost of rebuilding was immense, and the war's economic toll was a major factor in the creation of recovery programs like the Marshall Plan. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union, although devastated by the war, emerged as one of the world's two superpowers, playing a dominant role in global politics during the Cold War. Fact number 18. The United Kingdom and the Soviet Union were major allies despite ideological differences. During World War II, the United Kingdom and the Soviet Union formed an unlikely alliance to defeat Nazi Germany, despite their stark ideological differences. The UK, a capitalist democracy under Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and the Soviet Union, a communist state under Joseph Stalin, have been adversaries in the years leading up to the war. However, the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941 prompted Stalin to seek assistance from the Allies. Britain, in turn, provided crucial support through supplies, intelligence sharing, and a strategic partnership in fighting the Axis powers. The cooperation between these two powers was essential to the defeat of Hitler's regime, particularly on the Eastern Front, where the Soviet Union bore the brunt of the fighting. However, the alliance was fraught with tension and distrust, and after the war, it quickly unraveled, leading to the Cold War and a new division of the world into capitalist and communist spheres. Fact number 19. The Battle of the Bulge was Germany's last major offensive. The Battle of the Bulge, fought from December 16, 1944 to January 25, 1945, was Nazi Germany's last major offensive on the Western Front. The battle took place in the Ardennes Forest in Belgium, where German forces launched a surprise attack on the unprepared Allied lines. The Germans hoped to split the Allied forces and capture the key port of Antwerp, but despite initial successes, the Allies quickly regrouped. The battle was one of the largest and bloodiest fought by the United States during the war, with heavy casualties on both sides. The harsh winter conditions, difficult terrain, and high civilian costs added to the intensity of the fighting. The Allies were eventually able to repel the Germans, and the battle marked the final gasp of German resistance. After the defeat at the Bulge, the German army was on the defensive for the remainder of the war, and the Allies continued their advance into Germany. Fact number 20. The war saw the first use of V-2 rockets and jet aircraft. World War II was marked by the use of new and innovative weapons, including the world's first long-range guided missiles and jet aircraft. The Germans developed the V-2 rocket, a precursor to modern ballistic missiles, which was launched at targets in Britain and other Allied cities. These rockets were capable of flying at supersonic speeds and carrying explosive warheads, and their development was seen as a major technological leap forward. In addition to the V-2, the war also saw the first widespread use of jet-powered aircraft. The German Messerschmitt Me 262 was the world's first operational jet fighter, offering a significant performance advantage over piston-engine aircraft. The Allies quickly caught up, with Britain and the United States developing their own jet aircraft, such as the Gloster Meteor and the P-80 Shooting Star. These technological advancements marked a new era in warfare, where speed and precision would become critical elements in military strategy. Fact number 21. The Holocaust remains one of the most heinous atrocities in human history. The Holocaust, orchestrated by Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler, is one of the most horrific genocides in history. During the course of World War II, the Nazis systematically murdered 6 million Jews, alongside millions of Romani people, disabled individuals, political dissidents, LGBTQ+ individuals, and others deemed undesirable by the regime. The majority of the victims were murdered in concentration camps and extermination camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor, where gas chambers, forced labor, starvation, and medical experiments led to the deaths of millions. The Holocaust's scale and brutality shocked the world, and its legacy serves as a haunting reminder of the dangers of unchecked hatred, totalitarianism, and prejudice. The war also saw the destruction of Jewish communities across Europe, many of which had existed for centuries. Post-war, the Holocaust became a defining symbol of human suffering and injustice, prompting international efforts to prevent future genocides and to recognize the importance of human rights. Fact number 22. The D-Day invasion was a major turning point in the European theater. The D-Day invasion, also known as Operation Overlord, took place on June 6, 1944, and was the largest amphibious military operation in history. The Allied forces, composed primarily of American, British, and Canadian troops, launched a massive assault on the beaches of Normandy, France, marking the beginning of the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi occupation. The operation involved meticulous planning, extensive deception tactics, and a fleet of over 5,000 landing ships, supported by thousands of aircraft. Despite fierce German resistance, the Allies successfully established a beachhead, which allowed them to push further into France. The success of D-Day was a major blow to Nazi Germany, as it opened up a second front in Europe, diverting German resources and accelerating the collapse of the Third Reich. The invasion set the stage for the Allied liberation of Paris and the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945. Fact number 23. The attack on Pearl Harbor led to the United States' entry into the war that on December 7, 1941. The Japanese launched a surprise attack on the United States naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, killing over 2,400 Americans and sinking or damaging a significant portion of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. The attack was designed to cripple American naval power in the Pacific, enabling Japan to expand its territorial holdings across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. However, the assault had the opposite effect, galvanizing American resolve and leading to the U.S. declaration of war on Japan the following day. This event brought the United States into World War II, marking the end of American isolationism. Shortly after, Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S., solidifying the country's position in the Allied powers. The attack on Pearl Harbor also sparked a wave of patriotic fervor across the United States, with millions volunteering for military service and contributing to the war effort on the home front. Fact number 24. The Battle of Stalingrad was one of the bloodiest and most crucial battles of the war. The Battle of Stalingrad, fought from August 23, 1942 to February 2, 1943, is considered one of the bloodiest and most significant battles of World War II. The battle was fought between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union for control of the strategic city of Stalingrad, modern-day Volgograd, in southern Russia. It marked the turning point of the war on the Eastern Front, as the Soviet Red Army successfully encircled and defeated the German Sixth Army, leading to a catastrophic loss for the Nazis. Over 2 million people were killed, wounded, or captured in the battle, including thousands of civilians caught in the crossfire. The defeat at Stalingrad marked the beginning of a long Soviet counteroffensive that would eventually push German forces all the way back to Berlin. The battle was not only a military disaster for Nazi Germany, but also a massive psychological blow, as it shattered the myth of Nazi invincibility and greatly strengthened Soviet resolve. Fact number 25. The war inspired the formation of NATO. The aftermath of World War II saw the emergence of new alliances and military organizations designed to maintain global security and prevent future conflicts. In 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, was established as a collective defense alliance among the United States, Canada, and several Western European nations. The formation of NATO was driven by the fear of Soviet expansion in Europe following the war and the desire to ensure that no country would fall under communist control. NATO's founding members pledged mutual defense, meaning that an attack on one member would be considered an attack on all. The alliance was a direct response to the perceived threat of the Soviet Union, which had imposed communist regimes across Eastern Europe. NATO would go on to play a crucial role in the Cold War, providing a military counterbalance to the Warsaw Pact, the Soviet-led alliance. NATO's influence and relevance continue today, with more than 30 member countries. Fact number 26. The United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In August 1945, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, effectively bringing an end to World War II. The bombings, which took place on August 6th and August 9th, respectively, killed over 200,000 people, either instantly or from subsequent radiation sickness. The bombings were part of the U.S. strategy to force Japan to surrender unconditionally and avoid a costly invasion of the Japanese mainland. The decision to use atomic bombs remains controversial to this day, with debates over whether it was necessary to end the war or whether Japan was already on the brink of surrender. The bombings marked the first and only use of nuclear weapons in warfare, ushering in the nuclear age and changing the nature of global security. In the years following, the bombings fueled global efforts to regulate and control nuclear weapons, while also highlighting the devastating power of atomic technology. Fact number 27. The war resulted in mass displacement and refugees. World War II caused an unprecedented displacement of people, creating millions of refugees across Europe, Asia, and beyond. The war's destruction of cities, industries, and infrastructure forced millions to flee their homes in search of safety. Some were victims of Nazi occupation and persecution, particularly Jews and other marginalized groups, while others were displaced by military offensives, border changes, and ethnic cleansing. Following the war, Europe faced the enormous challenge of resettling displaced populations, with millions of people left homeless and without citizenship. In Germany, for example, millions of ethnic Germans were expelled from Eastern Europe, while millions of Jews were left without homes or families. The refugee crisis persisted for years, leading to the creation of international organizations like the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration, UNRWA, and the International Refugee Organization, IRO, to provide aid and resettlement assistance. The displacement of people during and after the war had profound effects on global migration patterns and the international political landscape. Fact number 28. The war led to the establishment of the Bretton Woods system, in 1944. As the war neared its end, Allied representatives gathered in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, to discuss the post-war global financial system. The result was the creation of the Bretton Woods system, a framework for international economic cooperation designed to avoid the economic instability that contributed to the rise of fascism and the outbreak of the war. The Bretton Woods Agreement established the US dollar as the world's primary reserve currency and created international institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, both of which were designed to promote global financial stability, reconstruction, and development. The Bretton Woods system helped shape the global economy in the decades following the war, supporting the rapid economic growth of Western nations and facilitating the rebuilding of war-torn economies. The system lasted until the early 1970s, when the U.S. abandoned the gold standard, but its institutions continue to play a significant role in global finance today. Fact number 29. The war created a new geopolitical landscape. The outcome of World War II fundamentally altered the global balance of power. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as the world's two superpowers, each with vastly different ideologies and competing visions for the future. The U.S. championed democracy and capitalism, while the Soviet Union advocated for communism and state-controlled economies. This ideological divide set the stage for the Cold War, a period of intense political and military rivalry between the two powers that lasted for nearly half a century. The post-war geopolitical landscape also saw the emergence of new countries, particularly in Asia and Africa, where former colonies gained independence. The creation of the United Nations and other international organizations marked a new era of global diplomacy, while the continued division of Europe into Western democracies and Eastern communist states shaped the continent's politics for decades. The war's end also saw the dismantling of colonial empires, with many countries in Asia and Africa gaining independence in the years that followed. Fact number 30. The war changed the nature of warfare forever. World War II reshaped the nature of warfare in profound ways. The scale of the conflict, with over 100 million people involved across multiple continents, demonstrated the need for rapid advancements in strategy, logistics, and technology. The war saw the widespread use of tanks, aircraft, and naval vessels, as well as the development of radar and early forms of computer technology to aid in code breaking and military strategy. The sheer scale of destruction, whether through aerial bombardments, the use of atomic bombs, or the targeting of civilian populations, changed the ethical and strategic approach to warfare. The war also saw the rise of total war, where the lines between civilian and military targets became increasingly blurred. The legacy of World War II in military doctrine, weapons technology, and international relations continues to shape modern warfare. The war's conclusion also set in motion a global conversation on the laws of war, leading to the creation of the Geneva Conventions and the establishment of war crimes tribunals to hold individuals accountable for atrocities. And there you have it, 30 mind-blowing facts about World War II that show just how monumental this global conflict truly was. From the battlefield to the home front, The war reshaped the world in ways we're still feeling today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, give this video a thumbs up and share it with a friend who loves learning about the past. Have any other World War II facts or stories you'd like us to cover? Drop them in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching Chelder. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.